want to put the recording in progress. I just mentioned that, Darwin used to say that moving into the inner dimension with Baba is a slow and often painful process, also a joyous process. And Erich in Mandalay Hall used to say from time to time that spiritual progress is very, 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 very gradual. For very, and some weaknesses take decades to get free of. But this book is primarily about the path of self-effacement, of vacating the premises so Baba can move in. And from time to time, Daniel Ladinsky, my old buddy, emails me, and here's something that I thought was rather interesting. He was walking with Erich one day at Merazad when Erich confided to him, "There has been no Erich for years. Through Baba's grace, I have become the perfect witness." Now that's there has been no Erich for years. Through Baba's grace, I have become the perfect witness. Think about that. I take this to mean that he is observing Erich from outside, so to speak. He is no longer identified with Erich. In fact, he witnesses Erich as one of the many forms of Baba and not himself. And I think that this is what Prophet Muhammad meant by the words "to die before you die." Anyway, that's kind of postgraduate Baba. And Darwin talked along these lines also. So that I'm just saying that to begin with. Yeah.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I'm in the hospital right now. So
oh my God.
if I'll unmute myself mostly and listen a lot tonight. But I got bronchitis again and very bad upper respiratory infection. And but I wanted to know, could you repeat that quote of Erich again, especially the last part of it, when you repeated something?
Where he said, there has been no Erich for years.
Yeah.
Through Baba's grace, I have become the perfect witness. So he's not looking through Erich. He's off to the side looking at Erich as one of the forms of Baba and no longer himself.
Wow.
I mean, these things are hard to talk about, but it's hard to get it into English language.
So he's looking at one of the forms as of Erich as Baba.
Yeah, he's looking at the Baba Erich, but he himself is the witness off to the side. Darwin used to say, I've quoted this many times, sooner or later you discover you're nobody, and that is not an unhappy discovery. So you don't have to become somebody anymore. In fact, you are not somebody anymore. But anyway, so how
Jeff,
about
what page are we on in Effort and Grace?
Someone mentioned that. I haven't looked up myself.
18?
18, yeah.
Yeah, but can you say the paragraph, because I have a Xerox, it's always off. I mean the header, sorry.
Is it excuses or desires? Excuses. Okay. Let's have Paula, have you got enough strength to read?
Do I have enough strength to read? I mean, I could. I have to see if I can get it big enough though. I have my phone.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I'm going to see it big enough.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, I can. I do have that. I do.
Okay.
I could read. That would be good. Is
Okay.
it this, is it under excuses?
Excuses, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put it to the side here. Oh, I think I can. I just have to move you, Jeff, up to a different corner
Oh, yeah,
of the thing. Okay. Okay. That's what I'll have to do with times. Okay. Um, dispelling the veils over our do you want me to start?
yes, go ahead, yeah.
Dispelling the veils over our consciousness is subjective work. And my understanding from Mayor Baba is that the path for each of us lies through our own sanskaric veils and requires personal efforts. To hold to the belief that the clearing of these veils will occur on its own over time without making efforts is to postpone our freedom. We find all kinds of excuses for preserving our own little desire nature and ego. Most people want to play in illusion and have their inner freedom too. We want a sense of spiritual protection and guidance, but we develop a philosophy of life that includes and accommodates our weakness. Further, we develop a philosophy of life that includes our weakness. Further, we do not realize that these are weaknesses. We think they are simply attributes of gross consciousness. So when it comes up to giving up all these veils, people tend to rationalize. Is it really time for us to do that? Is it really necessary? Does Baba mean for all of us to do that, or just his closest disciples?
Yeah. Okay, anyone have something to say to that? It's a pretty short paragraph. Paula, is your hand still up for? Uh-oh.
You're on mute, Paula.
Oh, okay. I see. No, I don't mean it to be.
Okay, anything to say to that? There is a thing, I mean, Darwin had this phrase, he used to say, metaphysical rationalization. Well, it's all Baba's will, so, I couldn't help but get drunk last night. It was all Baba's will, that type of thing. But let's go on to the next. Oh, Peter.
I see that there's a helicopter flying over by. There is a story called Making the Effort. When Darwin talks about making the effort, would it be helpful to read this story?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's revealing. And if you can't hear me, just let me know. Okay, the name of the story is Make the Effort from the Real Treasure, Volume 2, page 71. In my life with the Mondli, I have often seen them encourage us to make greater efforts in whatever tasks we undertake, and then to leave the results to Baba. On many occasions, Baba lovers would approach Erich with a problem they were facing, and after narrating the same, they would conclude, I leave it all to Baba. Yet, it was often very clear that the person was not making any effort, and Erich would jokingly reprimand them, saying, do not leave the effort part to Baba. Most people do that when they say, I've left it to Baba. Make the effort, do your best as if you were doing it for him, and then leave it all to Baba. Erich narrated the following story to further help us understand that effort and intentions were necessary before we could leave it to the divine will or resign to the divine will. There was an owner of a restaurant who was once chatting with his friend. The owner was seated behind the cash register, and his friend was standing by his side. They were chatting when a beggar appeared begging for alms. The owner did not give anything to the beggar, and the beggar left empty-handed. The owner turned to his friend and said, "It was divine will that the beggar not receive any money from me. Divine will prevented me from giving him any alms." The friend disagreed, but the owner persisted. "Divine will is all powerful and could have found ways of inspiring me to carry out the act of giving alms through a noble thought or thoughts of piety or just plain generous thought. As I was not inspired by any of these thoughts, I look at it as divine will that the beggar did not receive any alms from me." The friend replied, "You did not feel inspired because you had no intention to give. Also, there was no effort on your part to give alms. You did not even make an attempt to open your cash drawer to get it. It was lack of effort and not divine will that the beggar did not receive alms." The friend continued, "If you had opened the cash drawer and tried to reach for the money with the intention of giving, and at that moment, if you were to get an epileptic stroke which paralyzes your hand and prevents you from giving it, then it would be divine will, for the intention and effort were genuinely there." Erich concluded, "That's how it is." Boy, this is big. "We have to make a genuine effort and with the intention of solving the problem, doing it as if we were doing it for Baba, and then leave the results to him." Erich cautioned again, "Do not leave the effort part to Baba. That is just fooling yourself because your heart wants results from Baba without making the effort. In fact, it is the other way around. Make the effort and leave the results to Baba." On another occasion, a pilgrim said to Erich, "Baba has said that if you take one step towards him, he will take 10 steps towards you. Considering how small our steps are, they are insignificant and do not matter in comparison to the giant steps of Baba. So even if I did not take my step, Baba's 10 steps toward me should make a world of difference to my life and make me feel his presence. But I don't find that happening. Why is that?" Promptly, Erich replied, "Unless you take the first step towards him, he will not take 10 steps towards you. No matter how small your steps are, the intention, the longing, and effort in that one step which you took towards him forces him to respond by taking 10 steps towards you. Your one step towards him is a reflection of your longing for him in your heart. He responds to that longing. Longing for union drives you to create effort, and effort invites his grace."
Beautiful. Yeah. You know, this is kind of a slight digression, but the guy from Chicago, Marvin and Michelle know him. Mark,
Mark Palmer.
He said Baba's 12-step program. You take one step toward him, and he takes 11 steps toward you. That's Baba's 12-step program. Okay. Shall we go on here?
Oh boy.
What are you doing?
I have one additional question.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is why didn't the friend prompt the storekeeper by offering the beggar something?
Yeah, I know you can. I know
It's nice to give excuses, but the excuses belong to all of us.
Yeah, no, I can. I had that thought myself. Hard to get up. It's hard to
I
get
think we're
perfect
all
benefit.
kind of wrapped up in the Maya, and we make excuses for ourselves why we're not doing something, or oh, just this time I'm going to ask for this or do that, and just this one time, and I'll try to do it better next time. And I don't know. I think that it's really hard for us not to be wrapped up in the world and Maya.
And Bob is so sweet. He tolerates that. You know, there's a line from
Yeah, exactly. I just want to point out it's so easy to find effort and grace on the shelf because it has no name on the side. It's faceless. It's like, oh, what book is that? Well, I know that's Effort and Grace because it's blank.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Totally effaced. Okay, let's go on to
Exactly.
next. Let's see. Hey, Rich, how about you reading that? You can always pass too.
I'll read. I'm a little stilted when I read because I think I try to make logic of sentences, but anyway, more than anything else, our veils result from our attraction to objects and sensations at exterior and interior levels that captivate and preoccupy our consciousness. Such preoccupation amounts to a wasting of our lifetime. Meher Baba says that in our state of ignorance, we are continually in the grip of wanting. Wanting becomes a habit, and we look for reasons to keep it functioning. Our ego is made up of fat strands of desires consisting of psychic tentacles continuously reaching out for things, and it is reluctant to give up its life. It is very clever at deceiving our minds in order to retain its existence, and even at finding ways to expand its scope. We are like the lean, hungry rabbit who comes upon a farmer's fenced-in garden. After he finds a way to squeeze under the fence, the rabbit eats and enjoys. Then he decides to head for home, but he cannot get back under the fence because he is too fat. We fatten ourselves in the Garden of Eden, the illusory creation, and then one day wake up to the fact that we are captives. We begin to long for freedom. We realize that we have to cease going after everything that comes along. We see that we must slim down by getting rid of these sanskaric veils, our desires and attachment at the gross level. Fundamentally, desires are a repudiation of our innate completeness, not a separate completeness, but completeness within the aura of the Master's divine love and grace. The wanting machine is the only thing keeping us from our completeness. We discover that when we make an effort and manage to stop the wanting machine, even for a short time, we can experience our inherent completeness to some degree.
Any comments there? Darwin made much of getting in touch with your completeness, your inner completeness, so that you're not having to get things to to kind of complete yourself in an illusory sense. If I get this, then I'm going to be complete, rather than finding that inner place where we feel complete and we don't need to have all these things added on. Okay.
Terry.
Terry,
I got it.
yeah.
So, you know, in the emails, it's a very big time for spring sales. I don't know if you get them, but I get like so many things in the emails. And every time I delete it and don't go looking in, Bob is with me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's an amazing feeling not to have to want for it, just to click it out. And that's what I thought of when I was reading this, how much I go to Baba instead of the wants and desires. And when I do the wants and desires, they don't really, they don't feed me very much. And so just being with Baba is the best way to go. Not that I don't fall into the trap sometimes, I do. But it's It was a great paragraph. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that's, you're getting, in touch with that inner completeness, so you just don't need all this junk. Yeah, I mean, it's harder when you're younger. As you get older, I mean, yeah, you don't need quite you've already been through the stuff phase. Okay.
Rich.
Yeah, I've really been going through this in my consciousness lately. It's become really obvious to me that it's really hard. Because the moment I get to a place where I'm thinking of Baba, all of a sudden I'll think of something and I'm totally engrossed in it, or I'm halfway engrossed in it, because I'm getting old, like you said. But there was an incident that occurred that I think really reveals this for me. I was on the center, I think it was 88, but I was on the center, and back then, some people, I guess, would bring newspapers into the refectory or the original kitchen. This was in the refectory. So I was on the center, and I was probably there for about 4 or 5 days, and I was having the usual, beautiful Baba, time, where your brain is just cruising along, And I walked into the refectory, and I was looking at a table there, and there were newspapers on it. So I thought, oh, I'll look at the newspaper. Opened it up, and it was the earthquake in LA, and the highway, and all this stuff. And happened to be that one of our Denver Baba lovers' wives was living in LA trying to break into Hollywood at the time. So it was sort of pertinent to me. But all of a sudden I realized that didn't matter to me at all. I could care less. I'm on the center and I'm enjoying Baba. And it's like, I had no reference at that moment seeing this, catastrophe. It was just a piece of paper laying there, and it was just my attachment to this creation illusion, is just, it's everywhere. I turn on the morning news and I'm thinking, well, gee, I wonder what could have happened, in the world today. And it's really me, but it's so hard for me to break out and to remember Baba constantly. I'm like the addict. I'm like the fat rabbit.
Mhm. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, no, that's, as long as you get your heart into it, it's not so bad, but yeah. Okay.
Kenneth.
Speaking
Yeah.
of Denver.
Right. I guess my question is about desires and wants. And I mean, I get what Terry was saying about, kind of being able to turn down the ads and stuff. And like you were saying, Jeff, when you're getting older, it seems to be more like you want to give things away than accumulate things. But I find that my desires are more about what I desire for people, or desiring people to be well, and that kind of wanting and desire, desiring there not to be these big wounds on the planet where so much pain and difficulty are being experienced. That's the kind of wanting and desire that seems to be more prevalent for me. And I'm not sure how that fits in exactly with what Darwin's saying.
Yeah, does anyone want to speak to that? That's a very good, I mean, we're faced with that. I mean, most of us are faced with that. Anyone want to speak to that?
Elizabeth. You're on mute, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I forgot to unmute. That doesn't feel so much like a want. Hello?
Go ahead.
That
yeah.
does, okay, that doesn't feel so much like a want or desire, as more like because it's coming from the heart and because it's a selfless type of thing. That just to me seems more like a prayer. I wouldn't really put that. I mean, this is my personal view.
I
the
agree.
want or a desire. But I'll give you a good example of desires and wants. They happen in my brain, and it really bothers me as I've noticed it. And maybe I started noticing it because of reading Effort and Grace, over the past several years. But I start thinking, well, I need to go to the grocery store and get this and this and this, or I need this pot, or I need this thing or that thing. And I really don't. I mean, not really, when you think of essentials in life. And there's so many people who have so many other needs, but it's interesting to me how many things like that come up in a day. And I'm thinking, what is all this? I mean, it's astounding to me how many things you can want in your brain, whether you act them out or not. And that to me is wanting, and it's based on a perceived need that may or may not exist. And it has nothing to do with thinking of other people, which is when you're wishing someone's to be well or that their suffering is less. That to me is a prayer or a blessing.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of describing it, a more of a prayer. And of course, we don't want people to have to, our heart doesn't want people to have to suffer. And you wind up, because of empathy, which is really a great privilege, you suffer these things. But I think that empathy actually helps people. Even Baba through that can help people. When you feel for people that are victims of a hurricane, or I think that reaching out, Baba can use in his own way, I feel.
Can you say more about that, Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, we are very linked up with each other more than we might think. And say you're concerned about, say, a grandchild that's might have to have been hospitalized. That Baba, because of your love, that Baba can work through you to send love to your granddaughter and support her, even if you're not aware of the dynamic. I think, I don't know, does that make sense? I mean, if we were to see the longing, the prayers that go out from above, we would be amazed at how many ways we support one another without actually seeing it, how it happens. But having empathy and compassion, you may have to suffer, but I always say I would rather have empathy and suffer for others than be thick-skinned and feel good. Kind of like that. Okay.
Patty.
Jay Bobby, everybody. I just want to add on to that too, that I really think that because deep in our hearts, we really believe, or I believe, I'm speaking for myself here, that it really, the empathy and the compassion is what we can do, but really, we don't know what's in that person's path. Like somebody who's awakened totally could see that maybe they just need to have to go through all of that, because the lesson in that, or whatever it is greater than keeping it from them. I mean, it's difficult to look at because of the people we love and our family. And I actually had issues quite a bit with this. And I finally just realized it didn't matter what I thought. And I couldn't offer them my thoughts, but I could always offer them my love. Yeah. And understanding. And that always seemed to be, and your wish, your will would follow. I mean, that was the only thing I could do that left me without the agony of watching them suffer, or or taking on the pain, or thinking I could even do that, actually. So there's a piece in there that is, yeah, I don't know if I'm making
Yeah.
myself clear, but
Yeah,
yeah,
the love cushions their experience.
right. Something that,
Even if it doesn't change the suffering that they're going through,
right,
but it's happening now surrounded by the love that is going from you to them. You know, but yeah, sometimes we have to just let people suffer. I mean, there's nothing we can do. It's not wrong that people have had to suffer. We do what we can, but if we don't change the results or outcome, we have to, we have to let it go. Yeah.
Marvin and Michelle. Marvin.
What about Tony? What about Tony?
Oh, Jay Baba, I think that what Elizabeth was saying, that wants do come from the mind, but the heart is prayer. And what Patty was saying, what you were conveying, when somebody is in a situation of health crisis and suffering, the prayer and love, from my perspective, I have experienced that recently. My Caring Bridge site, there's so many people that come and read what's going on, and I have felt the love and Baba's closeness through my community and through that prayer. And as far as when we see loved ones making mistakes and suffering, we know that we can tell them only so much what to do, but until there's really nothing we can do about what they're doing. And there's that saying about leading a horse to water, but we can pray and we can uplift and work on that level of love, and it really truly does have an impact.
Yeah, beautiful. A lot of Colorado people here tonight.
Bob.
Yeah, one question. I'm just wondering if attachments to things that might involve memories or sentimental values, is that a form of wanting? I mean, it can feel that way. I'll give you a concrete example. I have a number of Christmas ornaments that belonged to my mother when I was a kid, years and years and years ago. And I look at those and I go, oh my word, I can't just give these to the ARC store. So there's some kind of an attachment there. Is that wanting as well? I mean, it seems as though it is to me, but it's hard to distinguish sometimes.
Let me ask you, does it kind of nourish your heart? Does it warm your heart?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I mean, if you're keeping it out of attachment, but there are things that we have in our life that uplift us, that bring in the memory of your mom. I'm just saying, sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
I always kind of think of it that way, I mean, when my parents passed on and we were getting rid of all this stuff, I got rid of most of the stuff because I thought, well, I'll just think of them within, and I don't necessarily need these external things.
Right.
I went that way. But
yeah, that's part of the process, and I get that. It's not always easy. I run across things again and again and again and think, oh gosh, do I really need this to be bringing these memories back all the time when I have plenty? So thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to limitations. How about Anthony?
Oh, trying to find that unmute button here. Jay Baba, happy
Good,
to
we
read.
can hear you. Yeah.
All right. Limitations. One time in 1954, when 18 of us Western men were gathered in the big room in the retreat building in Mehrabad as Baba's guests for 3 weeks, Baba said, "When we go outside this room, we see the hills, etc. Why? Because we have projected it out of us. It is all we. Being in God, we are the sole producers of all phenomena, and we get entangled in that. It is very difficult to come out of that entanglement. This means that we make veils by taking as real those conditions that we ourselves have created in the first place. We impose restrictions on our own consciousness. Through complacency, we tend to accept spiritual limitations without being conscious that we are doing so. We think in terms of separation, multiplicity, and eventuality. Spiritual limitations include being bound by time, which Baba has said is the invention of Maya or illusion. Our sense of time needs to undergo a change. We have allowed it to condition our thinking. We must repudiate, quote, the future. For example, Baba tells us how many lifetimes it takes before we reach the goal of God realization or liberation. Many people feel discouraged and think it will be ages before they reach the goal. However, I take the attitude that most of those lifetimes are behind us. Spiritual limitations are deeply ingrained within our consciousness. We are comfortable with them, and to be unlimited seems strange to us. But we can easily experience great spiritual freedom and salvation by accepting the immediacy of the Master's love and grace. To do this, however, we have to stop limiting God. Sometimes we judge his omnipotence and imagine him to be lacking. We affirm that he is omnipotent, that he can do anything, but we feel and act to the contrary. We may also discover that we are placing limits upon the Master. We have a tendency to unconsciously form beliefs that keep us bound to limitations and actually prevent us from drawing closer to the Master, to Baba. Thinking that we must purify ourselves before surrendering to him is an example of limitation based on the misconception that his love for us is conditioned by our so-called goodness or worthiness. By thinking this, we are limiting the possibility of experiencing his unlimited, unconditional love. Or we may think of Baba as of the past and believe that closeness to him is no longer possible. This misconception is the result of thinking of him as the physical body. In fact, Baba is of the present and is more accessible than ever. Harboring spiritual limitations has the effect of limiting within our minds and hearts the scope of our possibilities. Baba says that what we have to do is reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness. Becoming aware that we are the ones programming our limitations is one aspect of the conquering of the unconscious that Baba refers to. And Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, wow.
It's very dense.
Woo.
Can we reread that last paragraph, please?
Okay. Yeah. No problem.
I didn't get it. Okay.
Yeah, that was a mouthful there. That's the whole thing. The last couple lines here, Elizabeth, harboring spiritual limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah, harboring spiritual limitations has the effect of limiting within our minds and hearts the scope of our possibilities. Baba says that what we have to do is reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness, becoming aware that we are the ones programming our limitations is one aspect of the conquering of the unconscious that Baba refers to. It came to me reading this, just even seeing what these limitations are, and I don't know, I think it's so helpful to be around people or to even read about people that are coming out of these limitations. Even just simple things like, Jeff, the little talk we had, when you were even talking about how you realize that all aspects of Baba's Advent are accessible to us right now, and through reading in the books, you can kind of mentally go there. And I think you had shared that Darwin had said that, somebody like in a talk was like, oh, Darwin, that's so great that you can enjoy these stories of, the past times of Baba and relive them. And Darwin was like, I'm not reliving them. I'm living these things right now. So I don't know. I realize that a lot of times we don't even know what these limitations are until we really hear somebody explain to us, what is possible. For instance, by reading Baba books, being able to kind of mentally really travel back to these times that we think aren't accessible anymore. But, the books, let us actually go there in our minds. So, I really want to keep discovering what more of these limitations are, because a lot of times you can't even fathom them.
I talked to Darwin about this. What you're mentioning is, let's see, Valmiki was the one who wrote the great Indian epic of the life of Ram, the Ramayana, but he lived 300 years after Ram. But what he was able to do is access the life of Ram, which is going on right now. It happened in the past, but it's going on right now if you can turn to the right station on your radio dial, so to speak. And same way with Baba. Baba's, we think, oh, Baba lived in the past. He only came and lived this life just to let us know that I'm here all the time. And he kind of but his life is being led was led in the past, and it's being lived right now. This is what Darwin said. And anyone can access any period of Baba's life and be there, actually be there, because it's happening in the now as well as in time and space.
Wow. I think it's a big clue also, some of these medical studies like like where they do the PET scans and MRIs. And I remember reading something where they showed that somebody at an actual beach, has certain areas of their brain light up on the scans. And then when they do a guided imagery of the beach, the identical areas of the brain light up. And it's just such this clue that we don't have to physically go to all these places. These are, through books, guided imagery, poetry, there's some type of like internal travel to these places that I feel could potentially be unlimited if we really learn how to deeply get into these spaces. I certainly can't yet, but I guess we see the possibility of it.
Yeah, we did not miss Baba. He's like right here, and you could even see him. The people that were there before 1969 got to see him, but he is visible now if we can just let go of the programming of time of past, present, and future. Okay.
Rich.
Yeah, this paragraph to me is infinite intelligence is actually written about this. It's a little intellectual, but if you can grasp what Baba begins to tell us, that we're God and that we have infinite imagination, infinite consciousness, and then he goes through describing how that works. But my second comment is about suffering. And as far as this stuff goes, if I'm on a even keel, let's say I have a day or a week and everything's going fine and I'm all smooth about it, I don't want to interrupt that because I want to feel at peace. I want to feel maybe happy or whatever. But what it really is, it's an excuse for not losing more of myself, kind of the way Darwin would describe it. But what happens for me is I go into suffering. Suffering is the only thing that truly breaks that grip for me that we're talking about. And it can be painful, I think, truly painful. When it's really that way, I feel it in my heart and tears come to my eyes. But I don't know, it's always a personal thing for each of us. But one more comment, a third comment is, when I was reading the Blue Bus, what is the Blue Bus Tours?
No.
That book has had a profound effect on me because, like you said, Jeff, I kept feeling like, man, however Susan wrote that, I'm on that journey with them somehow. I'm seeing these women go through these toils and struggles and, frustrations, dirty, hot, endless changes here and there, stops and goes and oh my God. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, and I really feel what you say. I feel like we really go there and live those things in present time rather than projecting imaginatively in the past. We actually arrive at the present. Sometimes you can read these books and you feel like, God, I've been back in the 30s for the last couple of hours. Anyway, a very good point.
Ken.
Hey everyone. Jeff, when you were talking about the going back, Baba being in the present or the illusion of time, you reminded me of an experience. I guess it was in the 70s at Darwin and Jean's, and I can't remember exactly what Darwin was describing being with Baba. But I was sitting there with my eyes closed, and all of a sudden, inwardly, I experienced that I was there in the present.
With Baba.
Yeah, and with in this situation. And I said something, and Jean was like, "Oh, you were there?" And I said, "No, I meant I was there right now. I'm there." It was that present just for a moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it can happen. I had one other very different experience, an astral dream, which I don't have very often. I can't remember one or two others, but where I seem to have gone back into the past and to my past life. And I appeared to my past life self and told them they shouldn't worry, that God was watching over them. So that was kind of a strange experience to wake up from, but there you go. Thanks.
Yeah, but what you're saying though is that our usual just kind of conventional way of thinking of time and space can get fractured, so we can actually break out into a whole different and more intimate way of thinking of life. Okay.
Shri Ravan.
Yeah, I think, well, for me in particular, using physical forms as a crutch for spiritual progress has been something that I've always struggled with, especially as I, moved to a new city recently, and naturally you get lonelier and you're always like, oh, well, I wish I could be in India right now, or I wish I could be at the center, because you feel like that'll make you be happier. And then this past December, I was at the center and obviously super happy to be there. But then you start hearing stories of people who are like, oh, well, when my father met Baba, or, you know, my grandfather has this like relic of Baba, you're like, oh, well, I wish I had that. And like kind of that cycle of like wantingness never ends, even if you think you're in the place that you're going to be happy. And for me, I think I came to the realization that that desire or like unfulfilledness comes from the fact that I think like if I have those things, whether if I'm at Mehrabad or the center, then I'm physically closer to Baba. And there's a really famous Rumi quote, but it's probably one of my favorite quotes ever, but it's, you're not a drop in the ocean, you're the entire ocean in a drop. And I think that helps you realize like you don't need to be at the center to feel Baba's presence, because like I'm him sitting here in my apartment in Atlanta. Like I don't need to be at Mehrabad to realize that. And granted, easier said than done at times, especially when you're going through it mentally. But I think for me, like I'll always have my favorite pictures of Baba that I have around my apartment. And I'll feel peace when I look at them, but realizing that I don't need to look at them to be able to look inwards, I think is something that I've been trying to work on a lot more recently. And seeing this passage really resonated with some of the stuff that I've been trying to work through on my own.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, you know, the thing is about these places like the center here or Mehrabad and Merzad, Bob is equally there in Atlanta as he is, but the veil of illusion is thicker in the city than a place like this, where, you know, the veil of illusion is very transparent here. So you get like, you get a little boost, you know, in that. So it's understandable that people, you know, come here or go to these places because you get, even though Bob is like, you know, equally there in the streets of Atlanta, but, you know, there's just all those vibrations and veils and everything. Here, there are not so many veils. That's the beautiful thing. That's why I never left. Anyway, so let's go on. Oh,
I always thought it was so selfish of you, Jeff, to stay there like that.
it was an illusion that you have to leave.
oh, yeah, right.
But anyone want to speak to what Shri is saying, because what you're saying is so true. You know, I mean, the photographs are a reminder of the Baba who is within you, alive. You know what I mean? So, but anyone to comment, speak to what Shri has said. Ah.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you say, Jeff, of course, is so true. You know, I could remember for many years, I would get to the center maybe once every year and a half or so. And I try to take that home, and it would last for a while. And then it would, after some months, would fade. And I remember I'd get back to the center and be like, oh, yes, of course. You know, and Baba was so more powerful and deeply available, it seemed. And then we lived there for 7-8 years and was there almost every day. And it became an everyday thing, but I was still feeling it every day, actually. And now we've moved away for the last 2-3 years. And so it feels like it's sort of a challenge to not need to be there, you know. As you say, Baba's everywhere. So the veils are really our own veils in many ways. You know, we still have within us the sanskaras that are reflecting the veils, maybe. So if I can clean out a little more of those sanskaras with the challenge of experiencing Baba as much here as at the center,
And
That,
luckily, the heart can do that. You know, even though the city of Atlanta can't quite come up with it, but our own heart. And Eric used to talk about, you know, find the Baba's tomb within you. It's there too. So that you don't have to always go to India, although I highly recommend it at any opportunity. I'm a junkie on that respect. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Misconceptions. Let's see. Oh, I need to get somebody. Darn it, I can't see who the people are here. Shri, how about your rating?
Sure.
This is a very good one here. You know, one of the things that Darwin talks about is we have bought into a whole lot of illusions that just seem like ordinary life, but they can actually, we can get rid of them and draw closer to Baba. But go ahead.
Misconceptions. Perhaps most of our lives as spiritual seekers is spent consciously or unconsciously trying to correct the latent misconceptions that have been plaguing us from the subconscious level of our minds. When we probe each of our own particular misconceptions to its foundation, we discover that we have been coping with wrong answers for most of our lives. We have accepted as facts things that are simply not true. We have been brought up with the fundamental misconceptions that the creation is real and that we are individual, limited creatures. And so, right from the beginning, we take it all for granted. There are many misconceptions that we take to be a part of our ordinary lives, not realizing that they are misconceptions and that they are distorting our inner awareness. As seekers of truth, we have to see through the misconceptions and what they cause, and replace all that with what is nearest we can come to the truth itself. We cannot add truth to the misconceptions. Misconceptions can include the tendency to imagine things and to follow trains of thought. Sometimes, before we even get out of bed, a certain train of thought has already left the station, and we are not even aware that this has happened. When we first wake up in the morning, the mind gets activated, and we present it with a train of thought, which leads us into other trains of thought, and they produce what becomes the content of our day. So we get involved in following these trains of thought instead of taking control and initiating a wisely chosen train of thought. Misconceptions can also involve low self-esteem based on an innocent assessment of who and what we really are. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, is a very profound and philosophically revealing statement. Our everyday thinking, our beliefs, and the limitations that we accept are all part of the bondage that we experience. We start with a conclusion from our subconscious and our observations, then look for signs confirming our conclusion, which in turn solidify that conclusion.
Yeah, Darwin was very good at seeing how our mind tricks us. He was able to see through a lot of these things. But one of the metaphors he gave, and he touches on it here, is when you wake up in the morning, is like being at a railway platform. And instead of just jumping on the first train and wind up in Missoula, Montana, or something like that, think of Baba, you know, for a good while, so that, like you say, you can choose what train you want to get on. But that first early morning thing, I mean, of course, Baba talks about dressing your soul with Baba the moment you wake up. He'll talk about that later. But, you know, rather than just hop on the first plane, we can actually determine the content of our day with Baba. So it's a very important time, the very first thing in the morning, to spend some time. Rather than, oh my God, I got to go and see that boss, and he just is so abusive, and oh, you know what I mean? And then you're way off on that. Okay. Anyone want to say something to this? This is really rich. Aha.
Dan.
So Terry and I went and saw a musical that I had seen when I was 29 years old. So I'm going to be 68 in a few months. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
And I can forget something that I heard about this morning, but there was something in that year in 1985 that was in the, sorry, I'm very passionate about what we saw today. It was really quite an incredible experience because I remembered this line that has propelled me since I first heard it from a song called Move On. And it said, the choice might have been mistaken, but choosing was not.
Beautiful.
So move on. And so much of what I hear about Baba saying is to do exactly that. Move on, let it go. You know, it's a misconception that you can do anything about the past. So you might as well live with what you've made a decision about and learn from it.
Yeah. And make course corrections wherever you can, you know, but yeah, just to sit on the fence and in a state of indecision. There's that line, there's nothing worse. What did than a life of hesitancy. Sometimes you just have to make a choice and go with it. And yeah, anyone else? Let's see. Here's something, I don't know if I'll be able to, I don't know if I'll be able to read this, but this is very much like Darwin's way of thinking. This is from Marianne Williamson. I think many of you know, but this speaks to this. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So that's very much the way Darwin used to speak. Yeah.
Elizabeth.
You know, this whole, these last paragraphs, I mean, some of it's very basic. I mean, we have been brought up with the fundamental misconceptions that the creation is real and we are individual, limited creatures. It is hard not to believe that the creation is real. I mean, it goes against everything of who we are as physical human beings. And then further on, it says misconceptions also can involve low self-esteem based on an incorrect assessment of who and what we really are, which is basically what you just said. And the other thing I thought was interesting is it says we start with a conclusion from our subconscious. A conclusion from our subconscious. I was thinking, what is he talking about there? And our observations then look for signs confirming our conclusion, which in turn solidify that conclusion. So what is it in the subconscious that we are coming to conclusions about?
Well, you could have, you feel like I'm just one, just one little speck in the universe. That can be up there in your subconscious. And it's completely untrue. I mean, Baba says the whole universe is within us. So a huge misconception is ruling our life. We take it as an established fact, little old me. But I remember Darwin used to say, I said to Darwin, you folks have heard this, what is the biggest mistake the Baba lovers are making? And Darwin said, they think of themselves as small and they remain small. Think big. Think even outside the conventional spiritual box. We are beyond that. So the little old me thing is, get that thing out of your consciousness. Okay.
However, if you're saying think big, but wouldn't that contradict, like, wouldn't you have like a big ego if you think big? Just curious about that.
Well, if you want to go the way of the ego with that rather than the way of the soul, the way of your interior is large. Yeah. But Baba did use the word think big. Baba himself used that word, and it was even capitalized in caps, B-I-G. So it brings out the larger part of ourself that might be hiding behind a little bushel or whatever, So Baba, I think most of you read where in the 30s there was an actor who was kind of nervous and had a hard time expressing himself, and Baba said, think you're the greatest actor in the world. If it brings out what's within you, deep within you, where's the harm? So Baba gave that example, advice. Okay.
Rich.
Well, I have a very specific sanskaric. I don't know if it's sanskaric, not. Never quite figured all that out, but I think of myself as destined to be impoverished. I've worked real hard. I've accomplished some things, but I don't have a concept of making money or being a capitalist or whatever you're going to call it, but having more instead of having less. But I have my mind, I have all kinds of analysis of that, but I tend to think that of as my sort of incarnational karma, sanskaric not. But I really don't know what to do with it. But I don't know if that's good or bad or anything else. But so you can tell I'm kind of dumbfounded by the whole thing. I don't know what to do with it.
No.
But I know that Baba works actively in my life. But I think when my past, say, sanskars of greed or actual material longing or desires gets involved, then I think that's what affects that ability. I don't think you can live in the world and search for money, and also try to surrender to Baba acting in your life. It's kind of a mystery to me. It really is. But I've seen Baba act in my life over and over and over, no doubt.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these complexes we have, Darwin was always, feel them profoundly for a good period and give them energetically to Baba. Because we come into this life with complexes, you might have been impoverished, and so you still have that hanging over from another lifetime, and but that fear of being impoverished or shame is something you can give to Baba in the present, energetically. Yeah.
There's another issue that it just recurred to me when you were talking that at the same time, I know that Baba has provided me with everything I've needed, maybe not wanted, of course, but needed. The home that I live in is it's magnificent, and it's really his home. But I'm very fortunate to live in it, because it's really nice. It's been a sanctuary for me ever since I moved in 26 years ago. But getting on with that thought, there was a friend of Baba. He's no longer here, but no longer with us, but a good friend in Denver named Nick Descalos. And I didn't want to follow my father's mechanical ability. He was really good, like a genius. And I didn't really want to follow that into life. But Nick Descalos kept encouraging me, and he sort of pushed me in that direction. It turned out much later, as I worked through learning how to work and learning physics, low-grade physics, mechanical. It turned out that I had a certain, I'll call it a genius for that. And much more than I ever could have imagined. But so I have this propensity to try to solve, especially mechanical problems. But anyway, so Baba took me in that direction, just in spite of myself.
Yeah. Coming down from another time, I'm sure. Okay.
Yeah, I really love this paragraph because I think from a young age, especially here in America, like we're taught that everything is a finite value and there isn't enough of everything to go around. And I think that creates like a really restrictive competitive mindset from when you're a really young kid. And they don't really teach about like abundance in schools. But there's a Yogananda quote that I really like. And I'm going to read it really quick because I know it's getting late, but it goes, think of divine abundance as a mighty refreshing rain. Whatever receptacle you have at hand, you will receive it. If you hold up a tin cup, you will only receive that quantity. If you hold up a bowl, that will be filled. And then he asks, what kind of receptacle are you holding up with, or holding up to the divine abundance? And to me, I think that's really beautiful because, again, like I said, from when we're really tiny, we're taught that if you win, then that means someone else loses. Or if you do well, that means someone else does bad. And like that goes into a whole other like thing on like what you could say about social commentary and how the politics of this country have like changed over time and all that, which we won't get into. But I do think like that fundamental change in mindset is important and has like helped me reduce stress in my life.
Yeah, beautiful. And there's one guy that lives here in Myrtle Beach named Al Grosso. And he says, Baba's grace is always flowing in on us, but most of us just have our cups upside down. They're turned down, so, and Darwin said the grace is all around us, just, put out some buckets and bathtubs and whatever to fill up. But it's unconsciously, we kind of, I'm not worthy to receive this,
Was Al from New York City?
Who?
Was Al Grasso?
DC. Oh. Yeah. But I like that image that we have the our cups are kind of turned down a little bit. And it's all right here. Abundance. Okay.
Heidi.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, Heidi. Yeah.
Hi. So I'm thinking, tying everything together, including when Peter read the beautiful quote from Real Treasure on effort.
Yeah.
Through all the topics we talked about, beginning to realize that maybe Baba wants us to think big, and Darwin was putting us in the training ground for it, so that we could be better able to receive his love, more and more of it, when you think about it. So it's not from an egotistical place at all. It is from, as you said, the soul, right? But it's sort of like you get your soul connected with the oversoul, with Baba's soul, and then there's a thread of some type. You know, you feel connected. You could be naturally yourself, and then you've received Baba's love because you're open, you're worthy. You know you're here to receive Baba's love and to share it with others. So that's what I'm thinking. That think means that now.
And just think of kids. You
Yeah.
know, they're just wide open. They're receiving that love and innocence,
Yeah,
and
all the time.
enthusiasm without, you know, without saying I'm not worthy or anything. That's not, hasn't, unworthiness hasn't entered their consciousness yet.
No.
Or shame or regret or whatever. Lack, you know, not being enough. Hey, so let's stop here. We can stop with a misconception. And let's see. Does anybody, let's see if anybody have a last quote, and then we have Nasreen to kind of ring the bell on everything. Anyone have a nice ending quote? We got two hands up. Elizabeth, do you have a quote?
It's not a quote, it's a poem called Let There Be Separation by Eunice Emery.
Okay. He was a
Turkish mystic
yeah, definitely.
who wrote, he's kind of like a Hafiz, but he wrote in the Turkish language. So he was a people's Hafiz, so to speak, who lived in the 12th century. He was Sufi. Anyway, so this is the poem. Let there be separation. With nobody else around, you can't get offended. Stay on dry land and you'll never find a pearl. You can't walk on the road unless somebody cleared it for you. The full moon can only rise when the sun sets. A listener won't catch your drift if they're a fool. A heart cannot be pierced if it's made out of stone. If your walking stick breaks in two, it won't go back together. That's how it is. No ointment will heal it. A traveler sets out to cross the desert. It looks easy standing in the shade. Let there be separation. You'll have oneness soon enough. One soul separated from all the others can't settle down. Eunice, give your soul to the path of truth. If you don't give your soul, you'll never find your beloved. Jai Baba.
I guess, Diane, you got something there, and then we'll.
I got a quickie.
Yeah.
It's a Baba quote.
Mm-hmm.
Do not waste your precious lifespan in differentiating and judging your fellow man, but learn to long for the love of God.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Beautiful. Okay, let's have a few moments of silence. Jai Baba. Thank you all. Now, let's turn to what any kind of last minute kind of questions or anything or anything?
I have one. Shree's microphone is really good. Her sound quality is really good. I noticed that because there's a few mics that are really good. I don't know about mine. I can't hear it, right? But she's got whatever her microphone is, if it's Hewlett Packard or somebody's, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Technical comment.
Everybody sounded clear to me.
It's
I guess we sings well. I mean, she sings very nicely.
Okay, Nasreen,
Yes, I'm here.
we need your farewell.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Beloved Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Jai Baba. Thank you.
Now I can go to
Hey,
bed.
Bob. Good night,
Thank-
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chad,
Yeah.
as always.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank
Jai
you.
Baba.
Good to all of you.
everybody.
Jai Baba. Sweet.
Jai Baba.
And happy birthday, Peter.
Pizza.
Oh, thank you again. Yeah, it was very special until Anthony was asked to read again. Thank you. I appreciate it deeply.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Happy
Have a
birthday.
nice week.
Oh, I thought I heard Shraddha here.
You heard what?
I thought that voice I was hearing was Shraddha, but it was somebody. People know her as Shraddha.
Shraddha, yeah. No,
Yeah, she pronounces it Shraddha.
Yeah, I haven't seen Shraddha in a while, occasionally.
Yeah. She's missed.
All right, you guys.